You say,
Bringing you the finest entertainment on this side of the void. Game reviews, movie reviews, tales and myths from the supernatural unknown, unsavory food reviews, clown world news, and much more, all wrapped up in one extremely mediocre yet morbidly amusing online television channel, the Shady Gamer Channel. Entertainment, but not for everyone.
The Alps are a mountain chain in Europe that crosses through several countries like Italy, Germany, France, Switzerland, etc. Besides granting visitors breathtaking views, it's also a beloved spot for thrill seekers and daredevils that visit the mountainous region to partake in activities such as skiing, snowboarding, paragliding, rafting and rock climbing. Whether you're an adrenaline junkie or a nature-loving hiker, there is one thing you probably won't expect on your next vacation to the Alps. And that would be getting killed by a serpent-like cat-faced lizard creature. Such a creature has been sighted in the Alps for centuries, and its name is Tatzelwurm, translated clawworm. Depending on the region, it might also be called stollenworm, berststutsen, springworm, dazelworm, pratselworm, or just arassas. This thing has more alias names than a mob snitch in the witness protection program. I'll be using those other names too as we go along, so try to keep up. The Tatzelwurm is described as a reptilian being with a stubby serpent-like body with two tiny front legs, roughly between half a meter and 5 meters long. The variations in length of the Tatzelwurm supposedly depend on the age of the creature. Older Tatzelwurms are said to be longer, but also the region it inhabits will affect its length. Of course, some tales have to spice it up a little bit and claim the serpent creature can magically change its size. And all of this isn't even the oddest aspect of its appearance. Because while the stollenworm is portrayed as a reptile or amphibian, it strangely has a cat-like face. Some descriptions even compare it to a feline chimera or a small dragon as seen in Asian myths. I guess it depends on how much the people spotting the springworm have indulged during the aprés-ski. So a serpent-like monster with the face of a cat. But let's get to the nitty-gritty. How can it prematurely end your life in the most violent ways? Well, let's see. The Bergenstutsen is so venomous, it can instantly one-shot a human with a bite. Even its breath is poisonous, so if it even burps near you, you're a goner. And as a little bonus, it has acid blood pumping through its veins. Basically, the Tatzelwurm is as toxic as your average Twitter user, but probably better company. Despite its deadly morning breath and other poisonous secretions, there are no records of the cat-faced serpent directly killing anyone. That said, there is a story of the Tatzelwurm indirectly spelling the doom of one unlucky fella named Hans Fuchs. That's Fuchs, Fushs, not the other word. Anyway, in 1779 our buddy Hans had a run-in with the Tatzelwurm. The appearance of the creature shocked him so much that he suffered a heart attack as he escaped to his home. Eventually dying from this ordeal, he did manage to tell his family of his frightful encounter before passing away. Later, a relative of Hans made a painting to commemorate his death, depicting two large reptilian creatures looming in the background. Bit of an ominous way to commemorate the passing of a family member, but seeing how people make selfies and TikToks with dying relatives, well, we are doomed as a species. There was another alleged fateful encounter in 1934 when Swiss photographer Balkin snapped a picture of the arassas, which despite Instagram not existing back then, inspired an expedition in search of the fabled Tatzelwurm. The results of this expedition were disappointing though, and nowadays this picture is mostly considered to be a hoax. There is also a photograph of a Tatzelwurm skeleton that allegedly was mysteriously donated to the Geneva Institute of Science in the 1900s. But since the only tangible proof is just one photograph, the entire story is also deemed a hoax. An illustration of the Tatzelwurm appeared in the new pocket guild of the year 1836 for nature, forest and hunting enthusiasts, a Bavarian hunting manual. So it seems back then the myth was somewhat believed, and perhaps the Tatzelwurm was even considered fair game for hunting. Because hunting a creature that's basically a walking bag of poison and acid seems like a productive idea. The Swiss almanac Alpenrosen of 1841 also featured a drawing of the stollenworm, but illustrations and vague photos can't really be considered solid evidence if we indulge our inner skeptic for a moment. There are some explanations that attempt to make sense of the existence of the Tatzelwurm, opting the idea it might be related to the Gila monster or an unknown variety of otter. Or perhaps an undiscovered European-based relative of the giant salamander, which are found in Japan and China. That said, reports of the Tatzelwurm have dwindled greatly in later years, with the last sighting mentioned in the media being an article in the Swiss newspaper La Tribune de Genève in 1970. So unless that mysterious Tatzelwurm skeleton turns up and is tested, or the Tatzelwurm decides to rear its cat-like head again and bite an unlucky skier in the backside, this slithering critter from the Alps remains a part of myths and stories.